Now for our story. This morning, Aunt Mary and her son, Randy, recently returned home from overseas with the Marines, had loaded the egg crates carefully into the back of the little pickup truck and set out for town. Randy was driving, and Aunt Mary sat back, relaxed and happy at the luxury of having her son's sure hands at the wheel and his broad shoulder beside hers once more. Now, glancing at his mother, Randy notices her pleased smile.
What's on your mind, Mom? You're grinning from ear to ear.
I was just thinking how nice it is to have you home again.
Well, that's funny, because I was thinking how wonderful it is to be home.
I can hardly recognize our place since you've been working with Lefty. You've taken care of things I've wanted done for years.
Yeah, but Lefty's managed awfully well while I've been gone.
Oh, I know that. He's worked so hard, Randy. But he's just managed to keep one jump ahead with the regular chores. And he wouldn't let me help him much. He's so obstinate sometimes.
Well, he was right. You're not supposed to do heavy work. That's a man's job. Mom, bet I've gained 10 pounds since I've been home.
Well, that pleases me no end.
If this keeps up, I'll have to go back to setting up exercises every morning before breakfast.
Oh, well, if that's the case, maybe Lisa can teach you some of her exercises. I saw her practicing something or other in her room this morning. She was real graceful.
She's been doing some practicing, huh? That's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. She really seems quite encouraged about picking up with her career again.
You know, it's amazing, the change in that girl since that first night.
Isn't it?
Frankly, from the way she talked, I was afraid she'd be feeling low for a long time. She was pretty discouraged.
Yes, I know she was.
What did you say to her, Mom? How did you do it? It's like magic.
Oh, no, Randy, no magic at all. Just friendliness. Giving her some encouragement.
Well, I just hope this scheme of yours about Dell Shipley pans out.
And I'm pretty sure it will. There's no question about Lisa's being talented. She showed me some newspaper clippings she had with her. Apparently, she and her husband were very popular. They danced at all the better places.
Yeah? Well, I imagine she'd be very good.
And heaven knows she's a lovely thing. That's awfully important in that sort of work. What is it, Randy?
Oh, you're so wonderful, Mom. I get a kick out of hearing you talk about nightclubs and entertainers and so on. As if you'd ever had anything to do with that sort of thing.
I guess it does sound funny at that. But it is important to get her back into her own work again. So naturally, I've been thinking about it a lot. And I'm sure Dell's exactly the person we need.
Oh, sure. She ought to know the ropes. She's been in that sort of life for years.
Yeah, she knows everybody. She'll know exactly what's the best thing for Lisa to do. I only wish Lefty weren't so resentful about my getting in touch with her.
See, how about that? I've noticed Lefty gets himself into a lather the minute Dell Shipley's name is mentioned. What's the matter?
Well, of course, I know how he reasons. But he should get over it after all this time. Dell was only doing what any woman would do who loved a man. You remember that trouble we had in Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
Dell couldn't stand to see Lefty in jail when she knew he was innocent. Naturally, she blamed Peggy for it because she thought Peggy was guilty.
I'll never forget your first letter about it. For a while there, I nearly went AWOL. Murder trial, Peggy all mixed up in it. I felt so darn helpless.
You can imagine how Lefty and I felt. And, of course, Lefty's so devoted to Peggy, he couldn't forgive Dell. Just about broke Dell's heart when she and Lefty quarreled. She's such a warm, sensitive person.
Yeah. I remember when she came down to Wakefield once, a long time ago. Something she wanted to talk over with Lefty. I liked her a lot.
She's a very generous-hearted woman. I know she'll do anything in the world she can to help Lisa along.
Mom, didn't you say Lisa's husband is in Chicago, too?
Yes, he is. Oh, it's a shame their marriage broke up.
Was that why she's been so despondent? Because of her marriage being on the rocks?
No, Randy. It wasn't because of her husband. Although she was very broken up about it.
What was it then?
Well, I just don't know. It's something I don't quite understand.
Just then, Randy pulled into a parking space on Main Street. He jumped out and opened the door of the little truck, helping his mother out with the utmost gallantry.
My goodness, Randy. You make me feel like a duchess alighting from a coach.
Well, certainly, naturally. Aren't you the Duchess of Wakefield?
Oh, what a boy.
Any complaints, Mom?
No, dear. None at all.
Good. Now, what's on the program for me? I'll do anything but pick out buttons.
Well, now, let me see. Haven't you any errands of your own to do?
Well, I have to get a length of 3-inch pipe and some whitewash.
Then why don't you run along and get those things while I go over to Swanson?
Good.
We can meet back here in about 20 minutes.
Right, you are, Duchess. Now, don't go get tangled up in some long conversation and forget you have an appointment. And, Mom, if you're a very good girl, I might buy you a cup of coffee.
Oh.
Well. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Dan. Oh, and this is the baby.
Oh, that's right. You haven't met my grandson yet. Yes, this is Kitt's child.
What a handsome little fellow.
We think he's pretty wonderful, all right.
Well, I don't wonder. He's a beautiful baby. Those big brown eyes. What's his name, Ben?
Name? Well, as a matter of fact, we haven't named him yet. Kitt can't seem to make up her mind. And after all, it's a very serious business, naming the Calvert son and heir.
Calvert, Ben?
Yes, I know his last name is Meade. But however that may be, he's a Calvert through and through. And he's going to have a family name. A name he can be proud of.
I hope so, Ben.
I'm taking him down to the office. First time I've ever had him to myself. Let people around here get a good look at him.
Well, you've a right to want to show him off. He's the best-looking baby I've seen in a long time.
You bet he is. Smart. You got a fine future ahead of him, too. Haven't you, boy? Yes, sir. I'm going to start breaking him into the business just as soon as he's old enough to know what it's all about. Teach him how to carry on.
You're planning to make a businessman of him before he's a year old?
Certainly. Why not?
I only hope you won't be disappointed. You can't always tell in advance what a child's going to want when he grows up.
He'll do what I want him to do.
But he might want to be a farmer, or a painter, or an engineer. You can't be sure. Surely you're not going to force him into something, Ben. You might be disappointed.
Your concern is very touching, but don't you worry, Mary. I'll never be disappointed. By the way, I noticed in the paper that your son's come home.
Yes, just last week.
Safe and sound, eh?
Yes, he made quite a record for himself, too.
Did he really? Then in this case, the old saying doesn't apply. Like father, like son.
Ben Calvert, how can you say a thing like that?
Well, Mary, your husband Randolph was not what I'd call a brave man. Everybody
If
knows...
everybody knows, it's because you started it. And it's hateful, Ben, because it isn't true. Randolph was a very brave man.
I was overseas in the last war, Mary. I know how Randolph Lane died.
You can't touch me with your vindictiveness. I know it for what it is, and I'm only sorry for you, Ben. But I want to warn you of one thing. Don't ever let my son Randy hear you make such an accusation.
Still the same stubborn pride, Mary. Always ready to...
Good day, Ben.
Good day, Mary.
Oh, I hope I haven't kept you waiting, Mom. After all my big talk, I ran into a fellow I know. We got to... Mom, what's happened?
Nothing. Nothing, son.
Now, don't try to tell me that. The way you look... Say, wait a minute. Was that Ben Calvert you were talking to?
Yes, dear, it was.
What did he say to you?
It's all right.
Not with me, it isn't.
And now, Randy, let's forget all about it. I shouldn't have let Ben affect me, knowing him as I do. Let's not even talk about it.
Okay. Okay, if you say so, Mom. But someday, so help me, I'm going to lose my temper on that guy. I wish you wouldn't even condescend to speak to him. Why do you, Mom?
Well, son, he stopped. And he had Bill's son with him. I'd never seen the baby before. An odd thing, Randy. The baby's eyes. I keep feeling that I've seen that child somewhere.
Yes, Aunt Mary, you have seen those eyes before. And I wonder if you realize why you have this odd sensation, this feeling of recognition when you get back to the farm and look at Lisa Fenner, the real mother of the baby Ben Calvert presented to you today as his grandson. Now for our story. This afternoon in the living room of the little farm on Willow Road, Aunt Mary paused with the dust cloth in her hand, smiled happily as the pleasant sound of laughter drifted down to her. Upstairs in Peggy's room, Aunt Mary's niece and Lisa Fenner sat by the window, talking cheerfully while they worked on a new dress which Lisa had offered to design for her new friend. Two young women sitting together. Two young women each unaware of the fact that the other had been the victim of Kitt Meade's selfish scheming. If only Peggy had been impelled to confide in Lisa, tell how her own life had been affected by Ben Calvert's self-willed daughter. Or if Lisa had been less fearful, had told Peggy that her reason for coming to Wakefield was to reclaim her baby son from Kitt. But instead, since each hesitated to burden a new acquaintance with her personal troubles, the girls talked of casual things. Now, after looking quietly out of the window for a moment, Lisa says wistfully,
This is such a lovely view, Peggy.
Yes, isn't it? I love that little hill with the trees marching up to the top.
It must be beautiful here in the summer when everything's green.
Oh, it is. I never get tired of looking at it.
What's that little house down there by the road, Peggy?
Oh, that's where Lefty lives. He built it himself years ago when he first came here.
Oh, it's very artistic.
Funny you'd say that. Lefty thinks he's so practical.
I like Lefty a lot. He's so straightforward, honest about things.
Oh, Lefty's wonderful. In fact, I don't know what I'd do without him.
I can tell he's terribly fond of you.
He's been like a father to me.
Oh, you're lucky to have him. My parents died when I was just a child.
Oh.
I've always missed having a father. Someone who cares about you no matter what you do. Just because you belong to him.
I lost my parents, too, but I've been very fortunate having Aunt Mary and Lefty.
Yes, you have been. Oh, and this is such a wonderful place to live. Peaceful.
I suppose it might seem dull to a lot of people, but luckily I have a basis for comparison after living in the city for a while.
In the city? Oh, somehow I imagined you'd always lived out here.
Well, I have almost, but I did spend a year in Chicago. You see, I had an idea I'd like to have a career. I thought I wanted to be an actress.
Really? What happened, Peggy?
Well, you see, the trouble was I lacked the most important thing, talent.
Oh, maybe you're mistaken.
Oh, I'm afraid there's not much doubt about it. Oh, dear, I've lost the scissors.
Oh, here they are.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. No, I wasn't intended to be an actress. Not that I mind. I think it was just an idea I had because I was trying to escape from something. Something that had hurt me. Well, you know how it is. You feel as if by changing the outside things, the externals, you can get away from yourself.
Yes, I do know.
Of course, I found out it doesn't work. Because you have to take yourself right along with you. But I do envy you for having real talent as a dancer. Must be an exciting life if you're suited to it.
Oh, it is. Of course, it can get to be a job, just like everything else.
Was that how it was with you? Just a job?
No, Peggy, it wasn't. Not in those days. Then I was very much in love. Lance and I were so happy.
I was wondering, but maybe you'd rather not talk about it.
Oh, it's all right, Peggy. What?
Well, I just thought, since your husband's in Chicago now, well, sometimes things happen. People change.
No. The way things are between us, well, Lance might as well be 1,000 miles away.
But if you were happy once...
Oh, no, there's too much to forget now. I couldn't face Lance. I've wronged him.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. I shouldn't have made you think about it. Oh, there, I've got the sleeves all basted. Now, what shall I do next?
Let me see. You might... Oh, no, you can't do that until I... Oh, I guess there's nothing else to do until I get the skirt ready. You just sit there and talk to me.
Oh, fine. That appeals to my lazy nature. You know, I can't wait to take a trip to the city and see you after you get underway. I'll feel so proud knowing a real live dancer personally.
Well, please don't expect too much. Frankly, I'm sort of frightened. I'm so used to dancing with Lance, I'm not sure I'll be any good by myself.
Oh, of course you will.
Oh, I don't know. It's awfully different when you're used to dancing with someone. Oh, but Aunt Mary has such a lot of faith in me. I do hope I can make a success of it for her sake.
Aunt Mary affects people that way.
Yes.
Well, personally, I'm not the least bit worried, especially after watching you practice. All you need is an opportunity, and whatever it takes to get you started, I'm sure Dell Shipley can manage. You're going to like her a lot.
That's what Aunt Mary says. Oh, I only hope I won't be a lot of trouble to her.
Don't you worry about that. She's a grand person. And she's crazy about Aunt Mary. She'll break her neck for you, just because you're a friend of the Lanes.
That's what frightens me. I'd hate to have her put herself out for nothing. Oh, it's so hard. I'm not sure she can help me, no matter how much she tries.
Peggy was puzzled. She wondered why this young woman felt so doubtful, in spite of her obvious talent. Meanwhile, after glancing upstairs to assure herself that the door to Peggy's room was closed, Aunt Mary had gone to the telephone and put in a long-distance call to Chicago. Now, after a moment, she hears a familiar voice.
Hello?
Hello, Dell?
Is that... Why, Mary Lane. Mary, is anything wrong? Is anything...
Oh, no, nothing's wrong. Nothing at all.
Oh, well, thank the Lord. I hear from you so seldom, I was sure something must be haywire down there.
No, everything's fine, Dell. How about you?
You know me, Mary. I'm as healthy as an ox. Besides, only the good die young. Is Lefty all right?
Oh, yes, Lefty's fine.
Oh, that's good. I guess there's no use asking if he's changed his mind about anything.
Well, you know how stubborn he is, Dell. But he'll come to his senses eventually. I'm sure he will.
Oh, maybe so, Mary. But I'm not getting any younger. Well, what's on your mind?
Dell, I do need your help. I wondered if you could do something for me.
You know I will. What's the gimmick?
The what?
The gimmick, the deal, the idea.
Oh. Well, I'm going to write you a long letter about this.
Good.
I don't want to go into all the details now. But briefly, there's a young woman staying with us.
Yeah?
A dancer who just had a dreadful experience.
A dancer?
Yes. Her name's Lisa Fenner. You may have heard of her.
Fenner. Say, you must mean Lisa and Lance Fenner.
Yes.
Oh, sure, I remember. They split up quite a while ago. I saw something about it in Billboard the other day. He's in town here.
Yes, and Lisa's down here with us. She needs help, Dell.
Mean she wants to get back to work again?
Yes, but now she'll be alone. No partner.
I see, a single.
It isn't just the money, Dell. The girl has lost her confidence. Needs someone to give her a boost.
I get you, Mary.
I wondered if I might send her to you, Dell.
Sure. Send her along. We'll fix something up for her.
Oh, that's wonderful. You've no idea how grateful I am.
Oh, forget it.
And, Dell, there's another thing. I'm especially anxious not to lose track of this girl. I have a very good reason.
Anything you say, Mary. Just send her up here. I can handle it some way.
Aunt Mary hung up the telephone with a feeling of relief. Now things were actually underway. She hadn't explained to Dell Shipley her reason for wanting to keep track of Lisa, because of a name the young woman had mentioned inadvertently. The name of Kitt Meade. There was an answer to many perplexing questions, Aunt Mary felt sure, in Lisa's connection with Ben Calvert's daughter, and she was anxious to find out what it was. At that same moment, in her nightclub, the Golden Peacock, Dell Shipley has just dialed a number.
Hello? Lily? Listen, hon, this is Dell. I want you to do something for me. I just had a call from Aunt Mary Lane. Oh, everyone's fine. Yeah. But she's sending a girl up here, a dancer, and I wish you'd put her up at your place. You've been looking for a roommate anyway. Sure. Well, you can give her the once-over for a few days. Sure. And if she pans out, you'll be all set. It might work out just swell for both of you.
A phone call from Dell Shipley to Lily Devon, who works for her at the Golden Peacock. Lily, Peggy's old friend, with whom Aunt Mary's niece had roomed herself while she was in Chicago during that hectic period following her flight from Wakefield. Lily knows all about Kitt Meade, for Peggy, lonesome and unhappy, had chosen her as a confidant. Well, Aunt Mary, you couldn't hope for a better arrangement than this, for Lisa Fenner to live with Lily Devon. Now for our story. In the bedroom of her suite in her father's house on 11th Street, Kitt Meade was trying to read. But her mind wandered. She couldn't concentrate. Suddenly, she flung down her magazine impatiently, lit a cigarette, and prowled restlessly over to the window. She saw a quiet, tree-bordered street in a small American town. Too quiet, Kitt thought, and too small. If only there was something to do, some way to escape, to get away from her thoughts. With an impatient shrug, she turned away, went to her dressing table. Looking into the mirror, Kitt scrutinized her face, observing the lines around her mouth, the circles under her eyes, brought on by a recent relentless worry. Then her eyes wandered to the walls of the room.
This house is like a dungeon. I'm in a prison here. There's no escape. This town, this house. I'm trapped here because of Lisa's baby. If only I were out of this whole mess. I keep going over it in my head. The baby, Lisa. Suppose she changes her mind. I've got to get legal possession of that baby before she does change. If Dad ever found out what I've done, found out the child isn't his grandson at all, he'd never forgive me. Then I'd have nothing. Lisa's checked out of the hotel. She's gone, I should worry. And yet, I can't get her face out of my mind. The way she looked when she left. Oh, I've got to stop thinking. Get out of this house. But there's nowhere to go. Ah, yes. Yes, there's the circus room. There's always the circus room.
As Kitt sat at the bar in the Brown Palace Hotel, her second highball glass standing empty, the door opened and Nicholas Dorn strode in, ordered a drink. As he lifted his glass, he noticed Kitt.
Well, this is getting to be a habit. Mind if I join you?
Oh, not at all. Sit down, Mr. Dorn.
Oh, the secret is out then. I'm no longer the mysterious stranger.
Oh, I've had my men shadowing you for days. I knew we'd uncover the truth before it was too late.
You don't say. Well, it must have been a dull job for them. You know, but the whole story isn't known yet. I'm really the youngest son of the Rajah of Tatapu. The name Dorn is just a convenience. Keeps people from begging me for my autograph all the time.
A likely story, sir.
Look, if we're taking the masks off, what about you? You know, we ought to start out even.
All right, I'll tell you. But prepare for a shock.
I'm braced.
Very well. Mr. Dorn, allow me to present myself. Kitt Meade.
Kitt. Well, I'll be.
Well?
Well, what?
Aren't you going to draw your cloak about you and get away from contamination?
Oh, no, I'm made of sturdy stuff. I'll stand my ground.
Oh, you're a brave man.
Not brave exactly. Just driven by scientific curiosity.
Am I about to be dissected? Or did you intend collecting me for a specimen?
Well, I don't need another specimen. I left a perfectly good example of the species in Hollywood, name of Julie. Of course, you're somewhat different at that.
I am? In what way?
Well, you see, she wasn't the man-eating variety.
Man-eating it? Well, that gives me a rough idea of the sort of stories you've been hearing about me.
Does it?
Yes. Yes, and I think it's safe to say you needn't believe everything you hear.
Perhaps. Still, my stories came from a very good source.
Oh? I suppose you regard your source as unquestionable. Naturally, you mean Aunt Mary and Peggy.
Yes, I do. I'd stake my somewhat worthless life on anything Aunt Mary said.
Oh, well, there's no point in my arguing that issue. One thing about Aunt Mary fans, you can't reason with them.
On the contrary, I consider myself very open-minded. So you're Kitt Meade.
Yes. Yes, I am. Maybe you'd better order another drink. Awfully good for snakebite, they say.
Oh, I'm not worried. I carry my own antitoxin.
Oh, really? What is it, a secret formula?
Oh, no. Anyone can get it who wants to take the risk. You see, I've acquired immunity to your sort of menace. I built it up after years of exposure.
Your friend Julie again?
Yes. Some ways, that girl did me a lot of good. She forced me to look disaster in the eye and recognize it. I'll never be caught in the same trap again.
It seems to me you're being rather harsh. After all, I've done you no harm. In fact, the worst I did was to give you some excellent advice. Remember? I'm the one who advised you not to stick your neck out. Not to marry someone you didn't love.
I was just thinking about that.
Good joke on me, wasn't it?
In a way. At least I imagine you wouldn't have been so helpful if you'd known we were discussing my possible marriage to Peggy Douglas.
Oh, well, hardly. But I notice you seem to have followed my suggestion. I haven't heard the sweet ringing of wedding bells.
I didn't say we were getting married immediately.
Oh, perhaps not, but at the time there seemed to be a certain amount of urgency in your desperation.
Just my moody nature. It's probably one of my days to suffer.
Then perhaps you still intend to go through with it?
Perhaps. In any case, you needn't feel responsible. A lot of things happened. By the way, I met your husband, Bill.
Was that one of the things that happened? To change your mind about marrying Peggy?
Look, I haven't said I've changed my mind.
All right, so you won't give. Well, what did you think of Honest John?
If you mean Bill, I liked him a lot.
Oh, he's a fine, sterling character. Yes, indeed. Bill's the sort of man who always pays his library fines promptly. Forms a column to the left in crowded theater lobbies. takes his hat off in elevators.
Anything wrong with that?
Oh, no, not a thing, really. Just a bit on the dull side.
Why did you marry him? I can't see you going for him in the first place.
Well, I'll tell you. I was curious.
Curious?
Yes. Yes, I wanted to see whether he was made of flesh and blood or stuffed with old copies of the Rover Boys series.
Mrs. Meade, why don't you get hefty yourself? You're not fooling anyone.
I suppose you want me to tell you that Bill was the finest thing that ever came into my life. That before I met him, I was less than nothing.
You're quite a wise guy, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Wiser than you think. At least I don't intend to bare my soul to some casual stranger I met in a bar. Why should I tell you my reasons for marrying Bill Meade?
You don't need to. I know the answers already. You married Bill because Peggy was in love with him. Gave you a pleasant feeling of power to feel you could snatch Bill away from her.
Well, at least you'll have to admit I succeeded.
For a while. But look at you now. You're all tied up in knots because you can't stand facing the fact that Bill got fed up with you first. You're the sort of woman who can't stand to lose a man, whether you really want him or not.
Look, why don't you go back to Hollywood and write yourself a nice B picture? This sort of thing is beyond your depth.
You fancy yourself as quite a siren, don't you? Combination of Scarlett O'Hara and Amber, with a dash of Madame Pompadour thrown in. And really, you're just the spoiled daughter of the richest man in a small town. You haven't done a thing in all your life.
It's perfectly clear whose thumb you're under. Just covered with virtue, aren't you? That special smug kind they dispense out at the Lane farm.
A little of the same wouldn't hurt you a bit, my friend. You don't want your husband, Mrs. Meade. Why don't you give him up?
They've even got you to the point of cutting your own throat with an angelic smile on your face. Don't you realize what would happen if I gave Bill up? Really set him free?
I think I do.
Yes, and so do I. Bill and Peggy would fly into each other's arms.
They might. Suppose they did.
You mean to say you'd like that? After the song and dance you gave me the first time we met?
I forgot to tell you something, Mrs. Meade. Time you found this out, too. Everybody in the world isn't looking out for his own skin the way you are.
That I doubt.
It's true just the same. There actually exist in this screwy world some people who care about what happens to the other guy.
And you're one of these Sir Galahads, is that it?
I'm no Galahad, no. But at least
I'm not admitting you're right about anything you've said. In fact, you've no idea how wrong you are. But as to giving Bill his freedom... Well, maybe if you're fool enough to think you could risk it, it would serve you right. Maybe I'll do it. Just to see what happens.
Kitt left then. She'd been affected by Nicholas Dorn's merciless contempt. But it wasn't like Kitt to let him know this. She walked out with her usual arrogant bearing. Nicholas looked after her, sighed heavily. It depressed him when he thought of Peggy and how this girl's cruelty had hurt her. It never occurred to him then that Kitt Meade's last remark had been anything but flippant. And yet, perhaps Kitt was more serious than Nicholas knew.